I thought we were alive. I wanted to do all that bitching to a vast audience.
We were not. I'm sorry.
Oh well. It is all good. Hey, vast audience. We're late because technology and me. It's okay. My cross to bear. How are you?
I'm very sleepy. I almost texted you and was like, "Do you want to do this later today?" And then I was like, "No, I don't have to read. I can just sit here and knit and be sleepy, and it'll be great. Be very soothing."
Yeah, I'm good at soothing when I don't spend 15 minutes wrestling with recalcitrant tech.
I mean, I was not unsoothed by that.
There you go. You just play solitaire.
I mean, I was on Twitter on my phone. I was on another tab in my browser, but that doesn't work because until I add you to the stream, I can't hear you, so I have to be able to see when you pop up.
Yeah, it was actually kind of eerie to see you just sort of gazing at the screen and not registering that I was there. Like I am a ghost.
I am tired. I'm not that tired.
We finished watching Twin Peaks the other day, and last night we watched the movie that they made a couple years later,
Hmm.
and it's not useful at all. It's one of those where you're like, okay, now I have more questions, and all of the really intriguing stuff that I was hoping they'd address in the movie didn't even get touched on. So I went and read, there was like a 25-year later reboot, and I read
Hmm.
all the episode synopses, and I was like, well, this is even worse. I'm not gonna spend 18 hours getting more questions and no answers.
You know what I like for that? Fan fiction.
I've been, it's not quite fan fiction because it was just synopses, but I was like, I'm gonna write my own goddamn versions of what happened to this massive ensemble cast that apparently were,
That's fan fiction.
yeah, I know. It's just not good fan fiction because it's
Look,
very,
nobody starts out writing good fan fiction.
it's more like mental notes than anything anybody else would read. But I put together something in my head that was bothering me. Like there's this character who's crazy and has an eye patch and is obsessed with drapes and just spent an entire season with amnesia thinking she was 18 and dating an 18-year-old. Also, she has super strength for no reason. None. Like they never address why she can bend steel bars without any effort and
Sure.
hurl people around. And for the season that she thought she was 18, she joined the wrestling team at the high school and like destroyed all competition. And the 18-year-old she wants to date at first is like, help, older woman rapey. And by the end of the season, he's like, holy shit, I am so in love with her. And then she gets her memory back, like you do. So it's, and that's where we leave them. Like, that's it. Like, but she was so happy. and and there's all this supernatural stuff going on around town, and drapes are actually kind of important for the supernatural stuff. So maybe when she was a kid, she wandered into the woods and found the supernatural drapes, and that's where her drape obsession comes from, and maybe that's how she got super strength, and maybe that would be a really, really cool explanation. Twin Peaks watchers. Can't Nadine over here. Like, fuck. It'd be so cool to know that.
Having never watched Twin Peaks, all of that was just like, oh, what?
Right? But if you'd watch Twin Peaks, I mean, while you're watching it, you're like, what? it's it's very character driven. The plot is very scattershot and incredibly surrealist. But the characters are really lovable. So yeah, I've given them all happy endings.
Good, good.
And the reboot is not canon to me. Because it apparently for 25 years everything just sort of stayed where it was, including our main protagonist, the hero of this story, being stuck in a parallel dimension while his doppelganger is inhabited by an evil being that's bent on destruction and pain.
That seems terrible.
Right? For 25 years? Like, no. No, I am not okay with this. Where are we?
Um, yeah, we're in Flight to the Ford. Glorfindel came and picked them up. They rode. They camped next to the road, and then they had. He gave them metheglin, and then they felt better, and that's where we were at.
Hmm.
I have my laptop on my lap because I needed to like charge it, and the cord's not that long, and it's like, it's very hot. I'm like, ow.
He needs a pillow.
I could. That would require moving.
So
I don't want to do that.
they had rested rather less than 5 hours when they took to the road again.
Is the previous sentence about how they felt the breakfast filled their bellies much better? Yeah. Yes.
Okay. They had rested rather less than 5 hours when they took to the road again. Glorfindel still urged them on and only allowed 2 brief halts during the day's march. In this way, they covered almost 20 miles before nightfall and came to a point where the road bent right and ran down towards the bottom of the valley, now making straight for the Bruinen. So far there had been no sign or sound of pursuit that the hobbits could see or hear, but often Glorfindel would halt and listen for a moment if they lagged behind, and a look of anxiety clouded his face. Once or twice he spoke to Strider in the elf tongue. But however anxious their guides might be, it was plain that the hobbits could go no further that night. They were stumbling along, dizzy with weariness, and unable to think of anything but their feet and legs. Frodo's pain had redoubled, and during the day things about him faded to shadows of ghostly grey. He almost welcomed the coming of night, for then the world seemed less pale and empty. The hobbits were still weary when they set out again early next morning. There were many miles yet to go between them and the ford, and they hobbled forward at the best pace they could manage. "Our peril will be greatest just ere we reach the river," said Glorfindel, "for my heart warns me that the pursuit is now swift behind us, and other danger may be waiting by the ford." The road was still running steadily downhill, and there was now in places much grass at either side, in which the hobbits walked when they could to ease their tired feet. In the late afternoon they came to a place where the road went suddenly under the dark shadow of tall pine trees, and then plunged into a deep cutting with steep, moist walls of red stone. Moist.
I just like, it's a very narrow, red passageway with moist walls. Like,
yeah, they're getting burnt. They're getting burnt.
Jonald, we need to talk.
Echoes ran along as they hurried forward, and there seemed to be a sound of many footfalls following their own. All at once, as if through a gate of light, the road ran out again from the end of the tunnel and into the open. There, at the bottom of a sharp incline, they saw before them a long, flat mile. And beyond them, what? I heard the puck. Oh, well. Oh, no, that was my text. Never mind. A long, flat mile, and beyond that, the ford of Rivendell. On the further side was a steep brown bank threaded by a winding path, and behind that the tall mountains climbed shoulder above shoulder and peak beyond peak into the fading sky. There was still an echo as of the following feet in the cutting behind them, a rushing noise as if a wind were rising and pouring through the branches of the pines. One moment Glorfindel turned and listened, then he sprang forward with a loud cry. "Fly!" he called. "Fly! The enemy is upon us!" The white horse leaped forward. The hobbits ran down the slope. Glorfindel and Strider followed as rear guard. They were only halfway across the flat when suddenly there was a noise of horses galloping. Out of the gate of the trees that they had just left rode a black rider. He reined his horse in and halted, swaying in his saddle. Another followed him, and then another, and then again 2 more. "Ride forward! Ride!" cried Glorfindel to Frodo. He did not obey at once, for a strange reluctance seized him. Checking the horse to a walk, he turned and looked back. The riders seemed to sit upon their great steeds like threatening statues upon a hill, dark and solid, while all the woods and land about them receded as if into a mist. Suddenly he knew in his heart that they were silently commanding him to wait. Then at once fear and hatred awoke in him. His hand left the bridle and gripped the hilt of his sword, and with a red flash he drew it. "Ride on! Ride on!" cried Glorfindel. And then loud and clear he called to the horse in the elf tongue, "Noralim, Noralim Asfaloth!" Asfaloth rocks. At once the white horse sprang away and sped like the wind along the last lap of the road. At the same moment the black horses leaped down the hill in pursuit, and from the riders came a terrible cry, such as Frodo had heard filling the woods with horror in the East Farthing, far away. It was answered, and to the dismay of Frodo and his friends, out from the trees and rocks away on the left, 4 other riders came flying. 2 rode towards Frodo, 2 galloped madly toward the ford to cut off his escape. They seemed to him to run like the wind and to grow swiftly larger and darker as their courses converged with his. Frodo looked back for a moment over his shoulder. He could no longer see his friends. The riders behind were falling back. Even their great steeds were no match in speed for the white elf horse of Glorfindel. He looked forward again, and hope faded. There seemed no chance of reaching the ford before he was cut off by the others that had lain in ambush. He could see them clearly now. They appeared to have cast aside their hoods and black cloaks, and they were robed in white and grey. Swords were naked in their pale hands, helms were on their heads. Their cold eyes glittered, and they called to him with fell voices. Fear now filled all Frodo's mind. He thought no longer of his sword. No cry came from him. He shut his eyes and clung to the horse's mane. The wind whistled in his ears, and the bells upon the harness rang wild and shrill. A breath of deadly cold pierced him like a spear, as with a last spurt like a flash of white fire the elf horse, speeding as if on wings, passed right before the face of the foremost rider. Frodo heard the splash. Yay! Frodo heard the splash of water. It foamed about his feet. He felt the quick heave and surge as the horse left the river and struggled up the stony path. He was climbing the steep bank. He was across the ford. But the pursuers were close behind. At the top of the bank, the horse halted and turned about, neighing fiercely. There were 9 riders at the water's edge below, and Frodo's spirit quailed before the threat of their uplifted faces. He knew of nothing that would prevent them from crossing as easily as he had done, and he felt that it was useless to try to escape over the long, uncertain path from the ford to the edge of Rivendell, if once the riders crossed. In any case, he felt that he was commanded urgently to halt. Hatred again stirred in him, but he had no longer the strength to refuse. Suddenly the foremost rider spurred his horse forward. It checked at the water and reared up. With a great effort, Frodo sat upright and brandished his sword. "Go back," he cried. "Go back to the land of Mordor and follow me no more." His voice sounded thin and shrill in his own ears. The riders halted, but Frodo had not the power of Bombadil. His enemies laughed at him with a harsh and chilling laughter. Come back, they called. "To Mordor we will take you." "Go back," he whispered. The ring! The ring! They cried with deadly voices, and immediately their leader urged his horse forward into the water, followed closely by 2 others. By Elbereth and Luthien the Fair, said Frodo with a last effort, lifting up his sword, you shall have neither the ring nor me. Then the leader, who was now halfway across the ford, stood up, menacing in his stirrups, and raised up his hand. Frodo was stricken dumb. He felt his tongue cleave to his mouth and his heart laboring. His sword broke and fell out of his shaking hand. The elf horse reared and snorted. The foremost of the black riders had almost set foot upon the shore. At that moment there came a roaring and a rushing, a noise of loud waters rolling many stones. Dimly Frodo saw the river below him rise, and down along its course there came a plumed cavalry of waves. White flames seemed to Frodo to flicker on their crests, and he half fancied that he saw amid the water white riders upon white horses with frothing manes. The 3 riders that were still in the midst of the ford were overwhelmed. They disappeared, buried suddenly under angry foam. Those that were behind drew back in dismay. With his last failing senses, Frodo heard cries, and it seemed to him that he saw, beyond the riders that hesitated on the shore, a shining figure of white light, and behind it ran small, shadowy forms, waving flames that flared red in the grey mist that was falling over the world. The black horses were filled with madness, and leaping forward in terror, they bore their riders into the rushing flood. Their piercing cries were drowned in the roaring of the river as it carried them away. Then Frodo felt himself falling, and the roaring and confusion seemed to rise and engulf him together with his enemies. He heard and saw no more.
I got all goosebumpy. It's like, yeah, white riders on white horses. Woo!
He writes like he's writing for an illustrator, and I love that.
Mm-hmm.
I just had a thought, though. Like, 3 were in the ford, 6 were still on the bank. Can you imagine being a Nazgul and being like, whoa, fuck, that was a close call. Ah!
I have heard it said that a horse is just a sofa with opinions.
I've ridden one a couple times. They don't feel like a sofa. They're a lot taller when you're up there.
That is true. I have also ridden horses. Did not really enjoy it. Not a horse person, as it turns out.
I'm not either. It's definitely the opinions more than the sofa. Very bony and not terribly comfortable, and I did constantly feel like I was going to tumble right off.
Yeah. Also, they stomp on your feet.
Yeah. Also, they poop a lot.
And they smell weird.
Kind of don't mind the smell. But I do mind the green slobber. The green slobber is so gross.
Yeah.
Yeah. Book 2. Chapter 1. Many meetings. Frodo woke and found himself lying in bed. At first he thought that he had slept late after a long, unpleasant dream that still hovered on the edge of memory. Or perhaps...
Psych.
Right. Or perhaps he had been ill? But the ceiling looked strange. It was flat, and it had dark beams, richly carved. He lay a little while longer looking at patches of sunlight on the wall and listening to the sound of a waterfall. Where am I, and what is the time? He said aloud to the ceiling. In the house of Elrond, and it is 10 o'clock in the morning, said a voice. It is the morning of October the 24th, if you want to know. Gandalf! Cried Frodo, sitting up. There was the old wizard sitting in a chair by the open window.
Is that the only time that Gandalf ever gives a straight answer to a question, by the way?
And it's straight, but it's also snarky, if you want to know.
Like, yeah, bitch, obviously I want to know. That's why I asked.
10 o'clock in the morning. Okay, that means nothing. I think it might be. I think that might be the only straight answer. We'll keep a watch out for them.
I'll mark it on the calendar.
It's October the 25th.
I'm literally going to put that into my calendar now. October 25th. Gandalf gives a straight answer.
24th.
24th.
Yeah.
I thought my first thought was 24th, and then I was like, hang on.
No, you got it.
It's going to be a Saturday.
It's definitely in keeping with Thorin's father went away 100 years ago last Wednesday.
So it asked me to put in a location for the thing. So I start typing in Rivendell, and there's a surprising number of things that are named Rivendell.
Like Rivendell, Iliana. Indiana? That kind of thing?
Let's see. There's a Rivendell Behavioral Health Hospital in Kentucky. There's a place called Legend at Rivendell, which sounds like either an apartment complex or a hotel resort thingy in Oklahoma. There are two things that just say Rivendell with no explanation. One is in New Jersey and the other is in Seattle. So I guess pick your poison there.
Do a Rivendell tour.
There's two Rivendell schools. One's in Virginia and the other's in Fort Collins. That would be convenient to start the tour.
Right.
There's a Rivendell Stables in Mississippi and a Rivendell Bicycle Works in California.
Wow.
Oh, wait, there's more. I just realized I could scroll. There's also a farm in Connecticut, a bookstore in Kansas, Rivendell Tree Experts in Utah.
Wow.
And another behavioral health. For some reason, there's like 3 behavioral health places.
It's where you go to heal. That's
oh my god.
Yeah.
Nerds. All right.
No, if you want nerds, see if there's any Imladris.
We will find out. Also, I need to set the time correctly because this is saying it starts at 9. It definitely started at 10. Yes, there are like several Imladrises. They all appear to be in Scotland, England, Wales, generally UK area, though.
Okay. See, there it is. Rivendell is the Americanized version of Imladris.
There we go. Anyway, so mark that date on the calendar.
Scotland, you are all nerds.
Either that or Imladris actually like means something.
Tolkien did steal a bunch of really obscure stuff from sagas and mythologies and stuff like that.
Yep.
Anyway, if any of them have waterfalls, that's the genuine article right there. Yes, said Gandalf, I am here. You are lucky to be here too, after all the absurd things you have done since you left home.
You know what, Gandalf? You know what?
Frodo lay down again. He felt too comfortable and peaceful to argue, and in any case he did not think he would get the better of an argument. He was fully awake now, and the memory of his journey was returning. The disastrous shortcut through the old forest, the accident at the prancing pony, and his madness in putting on the ring in the dell under Weathertop.
Okay, so first of all, I'm gonna defend Frodo here because he did do some stupid shit.
Yeah,
I will not argue with that. Some of it was real dumb.
Falling asleep at next to the Standing Stone is the big one for me.
That's the worst one. And also going into the company at Bree, there was no way that was going to end well. That was a real dumb choice.
Yeah.
But other than those two, like putting on the ring at Weathertop, he was under the kind of pressure that literally like turns people's brains into pudding.
Yeah.
The ring would have corrupted the mind of literally any mortal creature like 5 seconds after they touched it, and he's still doing fine, and he only put it on once by accident and once because he was forced to by the ring wraiths. Like I think Gandalf needs to get off his dick, honestly.
Well, he does in a minute. Sort of. Well, he was thinking of all these things and trying in vain to bring his memory down to his arriving in Rivendell. There was a long silence, broken only by the soft puffs of Gandalf's pipe as he blew white smoke rings out of the window. "Where's Sam?" Frodo asked at length. "And all the others all right?" You can tell which one he cares about the most.
Well, obviously.
Yeah. "Yes, they are all safe and sound," answered Gandalf. "Sam was here until I sent him off to get some rest about half an hour ago. And tacos."
Oh, I want tacos.
"What tacos?"
I haven't had breakfast yet. And I wouldn't have tacos for breakfast unless they're breakfast tacos, but man, does tacos sound good. Did I tell you that I've been like having problems eating cheese?
No.
I know. It's been upsetting my stomach and I'm like, you can't look 2020. You can't take this from me too. Like, come on.
No.
Come on. So
Well, I guess you'll have to explore the cheese options and see which ones are better, or take a course of probiotics and see if that helps you out.
right, maybe I'll have to do something. But yeah, because I had a breakfast burrito and it had cheese on it, and then I was like, bleh, and I was like, no.
No, I'd rather give up eggs than cheese.
I would very easily give up eggs. I don't even like eggs.
There you go.
I mean, I actually have been eating a lot of fried egg sandwiches because I
Maybe
found it wasn't
okay.
because it had happened like 2 or 3 times before that when I was eating literally slices of cheese.
My favorite snack is still like some cubed up Bellavitano with a handful of pecans and a handful of craisins. And you just mix them in a bowl and munch them, and it's so good.
That is an extremely good snack.
Right.
Anyway, I might have to find a way to get tacos for dinner.
"What happened at the ford?" said Frodo. "It all seemed so dim somehow, and it still does." "Yes, it would. You were beginning to fade," answered Gandalf. "The wound was overcoming you at last. A few more hours, and you would have been beyond our aid. But you have some strength in you, my dear hobbit, as you showed in the barrow. That was touch and go, perhaps the most dangerous moment of all. I wish you could have held out at Weathertop." "You seem to know a great deal already," said Frodo. "I have not spoken to the others about the barrow. At first it was too horrible, and afterwards there were other things to think about. How do you know about it?" "You have talked long in your sleep, Frodo," said Gandalf gently. "You called yourself out. And it has not been hard for me to read your mind and memory. Do not worry."
Okay. Do not read people's mind and memory without their consent. What the fuck is wrong with you, Gandalf?
Oh, you know Frodo gave his consent to Gandalf reading his mind years ago.
You know for a fact Gandalf has never once asked anyone for consent.
No, but Frodo gave him carte blanche anyway.
I don't believe that. You're not going to convince me this is unproblematic, but go ahead.
At least he's very frank about it, and you notice Frodo's like, ew, don't do that. It has not been hard for me to read your mind and memory. Do not worry. Though I said absurd just now, I did not mean it. I think well of you, and of the others. It is no small feat to have come so far, and through such dangers, still bearing the ring. We should never have done it without Strider, said Frodo. But we needed you. I did not know what to do without you. I was delayed, said Gandalf, and that nearly proved our ruin. And yet I am not sure. It may have been better so. I wish you will tell me what happened. All in good time. You are not supposed to talk or worry about anything today by Elrond's orders.
I wish you'll tell me what happened. Well, I won't.
that straight answer thing is definitely taking a hike.
He gave one straight answer, no more. Everybody gets one.
But talking would stop me thinking and wondering, which are quite as tiring, said Frodo. I am wide awake now, and I remember so many things that want explaining. Why were you delayed? You ought to tell me that, at least. You will soon hear all you wish to know, said Gandalf. We shall have a council as soon as you are well enough. At the moment I will only say that I was held captive. No, that is not where you will stop.
Right? Like, no big deal. Just held captive. Anyway, no follow-up questions.
All, yeah. No further questions. You, cried Frodo. Yes, I, Gandalf the Grey, said the wizard solemnly. There are many powers in the world, for good or for evil. Some are greater than I am. Against some I have not yet been measured, but my time is coming. The Morgul Lord and his black riders have come forth. War is preparing. Then you knew of the riders already, before I met them? Yes, I knew of them. Indeed, I spoke of them once to you. For the Black Riders are the ring wraiths, the 9 servants of the Lord of the Rings. I'm surprised you didn't put that together, you stupid little fuck. Like, bad guys just come in 9s. Like,
look, everybody knows that bad guys come in 9s.
Yeah. It's so there's got to be like tons of things that there are 9 of. Anyway, but I did not know.
They're like boy bands. There's just a number of members that you have to have, and you have to have like the cute one, the hot one,
the butch one, scruffy one.
Yeah.
The metro one.
Mm-hmm. The non-white token one.
Unless you're talking about a K-pop band, in which case the most white-looking one who has bleach blonde hair. The one in a suit. The mom. Dad, you know, the nurturing one. The oldest one.
I think it puts us at 9.
That was 8. Danger Boy.
So those are the names of the Nazgul now.
You were stabbed by the dad of the group.
I'm pretty sure Frodo was stabbed by Danger Boy. Let's be real. Every time
Danger Boy.
Every time it says the Witch King, we'll just read Danger Boy.
And that's why the hand of man shall not slay him, because it takes a woman to kill Danger Boy.
Danger Boy. What is the secret of your power? That would be the funniest, most random, weird Lord of the Rings tattoo is a Nazgul that said Danger Boy.
Get to it, fan hordes. You know you want to. But I did not know that they had risen again, or I should have fled with you at once. I heard news of them only after I left you in June. But that story must wait. For the moment, we have been saved from disaster by Aragorn. Yes, said Frodo. It was Strider that saved us. Yet I was afraid of him at first. Sam never quite trusted him, I think. Not at any rate until we met Glorfindel. Gandalf smiled. I have heard all about Sam, he said. He has no more doubts now. I am glad, said Frodo, for I have become very fond of Strider. Oh, well, fond is not the right word. I mean, he is dear to me, though he is strange and grim at times. In fact, he reminds me often of you. I didn't know that any of the big people were like that. I thought, well, that they were just big and rather stupid. Kind.
Racist.
Yeah. Way to form opinions without any input. A little shit.
Right? I'm like, how many of you met even?
They just show up in Hobbit fairy tales.
Okay, well, in that case, you could see it, right? They would be like giants.
Exactly. Kind and stupid like Butterbur, or stupid and wicked like Bill Ferny. But then we don't know much about men in the Shire, except perhaps the Brelanders. You don't know much even about them if you think old Barlaman is stupid, said Gandalf. He is wise enough on his own ground. He thinks less than he talks, and slower. Yet he can see through a brick wall in time, as they say in Bree. That's a weird saying.
Right? I'm like, did Superman grow up in Bree? Like, who sees through a brick wall? What does that mean?
Right? Does he deduce what's on the other side of the brick wall with the, like, listening for sounds and watching shadows and...
If he stares hard enough at it, does he just clip right through it like a poorly designed video game?
Or do all brick walls have a window in them and eventually even a stupid person will find the window and look through it? What did you mean, Jonald? Speak to us.
I'm so happy I've infected you with the Jonald thing.
It works.
It really does.
There's a lot of Johns. There's only one Jonald.
Jonald, Ronald, Rolkin, Tolkien.
Have we told them about getting ruled?
No, I don't think so.
The first time we read this together, we would state aloud, gosh, I wish so-and-so would do blah, or is anybody ever going to bring up blah? And the next sentence would be the thing we had just said. So we decided there needed to be a word for the verb where a plot immediately manifests whatever it is you think it ought to, and that's getting ruled. So yeah.
Yep.
We got ruled a lot.
We did. By the way, we have about 5 minutes left. I don't know how accessible your clock is.
Oh, thank you. Do. But there are few left in Middle-earth like Aragorn, son of Arathorn. The race of the kings from over the sea is nearly at an end. It may be that this War of the Ring will be their last adventure. Do you really mean that Strider is one of the people of the old kings? Said Frodo in wonder. I thought they had all vanished long ago. I thought he was only a ranger. Only a ranger? Cried Gandalf. My dear Frodo, that is just what the rangers are. The last remnant in the north of the great people, the men of the west. They have helped me before, and I shall need their help in the days to come. For we have reached Rivendell, but the ring is not yet at rest. I suppose not, said Frodo. But so far my only thought has been to get here, and I hope I shan't have to go any farther. It is very pleasant just to rest. I have had a month of exile and adventure, and I find that has been as much as I want. He fell silent.
Well, that's unfortunate.
Yeah. Sorry, dude. Bad news.
That's like when we were like 2 days into quarantine and we were like, oh, this sucks so much.
We're
I hate
done.
it. It's been like 3 days and I haven't seen anyone. And 8 weeks later, we're all like,
Yep. We were such babies.
we were such sweet summer children.
So far, my only thought has been to get here, and I hope I shan't have to, exile much as I want. He fell silent and shut his eyes. After a while, he spoke again. I have been reckoning, he said, and I can't bring the total up to October the 24th. It ought to be the 21st. We must have reached the ford by the 20th. You have talked and reckoned more than is good for you, said Gandalf. How do the side and shoulder feel now? I don't know, Frodo answered. They don't feel at all, which is an improvement, but he made an effort. I can move my arm again a little. Yes, it is coming back to life. It is not cold, he added, touching his left hand with his right. Good, said Gandalf. It is mending fast. You will soon be sound again. Elrond has cured you. He has tended you for days, ever since you were brought in. Days, said Frodo. You make such leading statements, Gandalf. Well, 4 nights and 3 days, to be exact. The elves brought you from the ford on the night of the 20th, and that is where you lost count. I could have told you that several pages ago, but I didn't. We have been terribly anxious, and Sam has hardly left your side, day or night, except to run messages. Elrond is a master of healing, but the weapons of our enemy are deadly. To tell you the truth, I had very little hope, for I suspected that there was some fragment of the blade still in the closed wound. I'd given you up for dead. You're welcome. But it could not be found until last night. Then Elrond removed a splinter. It was deeply buried, and it was working inwards. Oh my god, Tony Stark is Frodo.
Oh my god, he is. That makes Rhodey Sam. That extremely checks out.
It totally does. Yeah. Yep, I'm there.
Good, we can add that to our list now.
Right? That's not who we had Tony as before. Who was Tony before?
I don't remember. I'd have to rewatch some of the early episodes. Maybe we had him as Gandalf? But Nick Fury should be Gandalf.
Nick Fury should totally be Gandalf. Never gives a straight answer. Pulls all the strings. Yeah, that's our Gandalf.
I think we talked about having either Bucky or Steve be Frodo and the other one be Sam, but then we realized that Steve is Aragorn and Bucky's Arwen.
Yes, that is in fact very much the case. And yeah, Tony's fucking Frodo. Very much aware of his own shortcomings.
Slowly corrupted by the thing that he is trying to use to protect others.
Haunted by the shrapnel. Yeah. Doesn't always make the best decisions.
Ultimately, okay, so Frodo doesn't actually save the day, ultimately. And Tony does, which is because Marvel doesn't know how to properly construct a good epic.
I was okay with it.
No, I was okay with it too. I think it works. I just think that many things they did were terrible, and also the theory of epics suggests that the hero has to fail at the end, which Tony didn't. Although he failed first, and then he succeeded.
He failed and then succeeded, and that seems perfectly legit. I can embrace that. Yeah. I know it's 1:00. Let me get to the end of this conversation, or at least the stopping place.
I was going to say, how long is the conversation? Because I'm hungry. I want to go have breakfast.
Gotcha. Frodo shuddered, remembering the cruel knife with notched blade that had vanished in Strider's hands. "Don't be alarmed," said Gandalf. "It is gone now. It has been melted, and it seems that hobbits fade very reluctantly. I have known strong warriors of the big people who would quickly have been overcome by that splinter which you bore for 17 days.
What a fucking badass.
What a fucking badass. And he didn't even bitch about it. So cool. Yeah. What would they have done to me? Asked Frodo. What were the riders trying to do? They tried to pierce your heart with a Morgul knife which remains in the wound. If they had succeeded, you would have become like they are, only weaker and under their command. You would have become a wraith under the dominion of the Dark Lord, and he would have tormented you for trying to keep his ring, if any greater torment were possible than being robbed of it and seeing it on his hand. Thank goodness I did not realize the horrible danger, said Frodo faintly. I was mortally afraid, of course, but if I had known more, I should not have dared even to move. It is a marvel that I escaped. Marvel, Yes, fortune or fate have helped you, said Gandalf, not to mention courage. For your heart was not touched, and only your shoulder was pierced, and that was because you resisted to the last. But it was a terribly narrow shave, so to speak. You were in gravest peril while you wore the ring, for then you were half in the wraith world yourself, and they might have seized you. You could see them, and they could see you. I know, said Frodo. They were terrible to behold. But why could we all see their horses? Oh, they're not wraith horses. Wraith horses would be a great concept, though. Invisible horses.
They'd be hard to ride, though.
Yeah, dribbling green slobber out of invisible mouths. Because they are real horses, just as the black robes are real robes that they wear to give shape to their nothingness when they have dealings with the living. That's where we're going to stop for now. You get to read the rest of Gandalf's explanation.
Oh, lucky me!
Oh, lucky you! It's not for you to talk and listen and wonder, so I'm going to talk at you for 5.5 pages. And then get on your case for being irresponsible.
Typical Gandalf.
Absolutely. Well, I've disabled the software that made it possible for me to paint with the camera. But this is what I was working on.
It's beautiful. I
shall get different software that is not so horrible. And maybe that will give me access to a mic so that I can monologue, not into the void.
All right. Well, I'm going to go eat breakfast. I'm starving.
But I love you.
You.
Cuidado.
Te amas.